All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back with another episode of the Pigeon Whole Motorcycle Podcast. I'm pretty lucky today. I have announcer, spokesperson, uh, what event host, big mouth, Jacqui Van Ham. Did I just call you big mouth?
That's actually really totally fine because that is, I mean, that's pretty concise, but you're not inaccurate. So I mean, I'm gonna roll with it. I definitely am a big mouth, and the fact that I mean, I always have been, and the fact that there is a job created around being a big mouth, and that it's
Yeah,
my job is just icing on the cake.
I love it that you actually get paid to talk.
I'm
Yeah,
technically the luckiest girl in America for sure.
I know. Well, it's funny because they're doing a GoFundMe right now for me to have me shut up. So we're kind of in opposite boats, but we'll keep it going.
Where do I donate to that?
Hey,
Like, just
not
kidding. I
not
love
being on the
you.
show to promote it,
Just
that's for sure.
just kidding,
So
just
Jackie, let's
kidding.
do this because I'm sure a couple people probably saw this and said, "Oh my God, I gotta hear Jackie on the show." But what I want to do first is I want to tell people about you that maybe have no idea. I know there might be one or two people left on the planet that maybe don't know who you are. So let's just kind of introduce yourself. Like, even how did you get into this whole mess?
So I've so so I've great question. So I started riding motorcycles probably like in my I mean technically I started riding motorcycles. My very first bike was when I was 11 years old, but that lasted for about 27 minutes before I wadded it up and wrapped it around a fence post. So that was the end of my motorcycling career at 11, and then fast forward to my 20s and I really started getting into vintage motorcycles. And I would read this magazine that was put out here in the Midwest. You wouldn't know about it because you're not into motorcycles, but other Midwesterners might. And it was called the Walnut Cycle Trader. And it was indeed a cycle trader. There was, not pulling any punches here. But the rad part about it is that they would repop articles and reviews of motorcycles from the era that the bikes were released. So it had, the old advertisements, the old pictures, and their specs and all that kind of jazz. And I read that thing like the Bible. Like I would just memorize it. I just devoured it and fell in love with vintage bikes. There's something about the style, of course, but also the simplicity of vintage bikes versus a modern bike just really appealed to me. So I started getting into bikes. I got my first bike like when I was around 25, I think. And from there I rode a little bit, but then I moved to Kentucky so I could ride more. At that time, I was living in Chicago, and you don't really ride a lot in Chicago because the streets are terrible. The traffic is cuckoo crazy. It takes an hour to get outside of town to go look at anything. It was fun to commute around town on. I'm not throwing shade, but it wasn't until I got to Kentucky that I started to ride more. And then due to actually, this isn't very funny, but I got hit by a drunk driver from behind on my very first bike, which was a 1964 Honda Dream 305. I
Wow.
got caught underneath the front bumper, dragged for like 150 feet because the guy didn't realize that he'd hit somebody. He had passengers in the car and they were like, dude, you hit somebody. And he finally slammed on the brakes, which spit me out the front, like a wad of chewing gum. And then he tried to hit the pedal and get away. But so many cars had stopped by that point because 150 yards is actually kind of a long time. And my bike had like
Long way.
slid out across the road and it luckily didn't hit any other cars, but it blocked the other lane. And anyway, by that point, traffic had stopped. So this guy couldn't go anywhere. So I was pretty much okay though, thank goodness. I had some really terrific road rash, which was really sucky, but I didn't break any bones. I'm super grateful and lucky. And I was around the corner from my house, so honestly, I just walked home, and then went to the hospital later.
Wow.
But I was able to file an insurance claim against this guy to pay for that bike, and then I took that money and instead of fixing the bike, I took that money and went and bought another bike because I was gonna be damned if this was gonna stop, my motorcycling career, as it were. And
Right.
that's when I bought my 1972 BMW R75/5. So that's a 750cc, which, Dave, I know you don't know about bikes. So that's a bigger bike
That's
than my
bigger than the 700cc by like
it
50.
is bigger than 700 cc's,
Oof.
and it was over twice as much bigger than my little 305. So that way I could travel on it. I know, aren't I a dick? I could travel on it, and I could, go places and go
Right.
to events. And I started going to ARMA races, which here in the United States is a series of vintage motorcycle road racing. They do dirt, they do a little bit of flat track. Anyway, it's a fantastic series, and it's a cool place to go see these rad old bikes race and run and do what they're supposed to do.
Right.
And on top of it, the people are just the nicest, most down to earth, genuine, kick ass people, because you have to be. Your bikes are always breaking. These are old bikes, so like you better be a decent human being, or like so and so ain't gonna loan you the part that you need to fix your bike when it shits itself Saturday afternoon.
Right.
So I just really fell in love with it. And so I went to a bunch of races here in the United States and traveled around and ping ponged around on my bike and couch surfed and loved it. And then I in like 2006, 2007 time, I was invited to go over to Assen in Holland for the MotoGP,
Wow.
courtesy of a company called Revit, which still is in existence today. They're a brilliant motorcycle apparel company. They sent me over with the intention of writing up and reviewing and being exposed to the new product line for that year, which I did. And I wrote about it for BMW Owners News magazine, because by that point I had started contributing a couple little articles for them, because I was officially a BMW nerd by that point because I had my 750. So
Right.
I went to Assen and I just fell in love with, MotoGP in the States is cool. MotoGP overseas is way, way, way cooler.
Really?
There's hundreds of thousands of people. Here on a good year, we get maybe like 100,000. They easily get 250,000 people at these races. So it becomes a city of motorcyclists, and they mostly ride there because that's the best and easiest way to get around Europe is by motorcycle, which is why motorcycling is so popular there.
Right.
Anyway, so there's thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of bikes everywhere, and bikers and people and bonfires and people getting drunk. And I mean, it's just this crazy 5-day crazy party. And I went there and my mind was just blown, like how, because I'd never seen anything like it. I just couldn't believe it. And I came home and I was like, I've got to go see this for myself. Like I have to figure out how to send my old bike over, how to get my butt over there, how to go ride around and go experience this incredible culture for myself. And
Yeah.
then I put my thinking cap on and I reached out to some different companies and, how could I sell this? How could I pitch this? And I ended up getting a little bit of product from different companies. I hosted like bike washes. I was the OG Kickstarter in the Wayback Machine of how to raise money and how to do this. And I'm not kidding you. Like I hosted raffles, whatever it took. I worked it out and I set aside just a little handful of pennies to go and had my bike shipped over. And ironically, here's the kicker, is that in this super bizarre twist of the universe, 2 weeks before I went, I'd already booked my flight. The bike had already been put on a boat. It went over. Actually, no, the bike went on a plane because I was in a hurry to get over there. Anyway, so yeah, so I was in a little bit of a hurry. So the bike went actually on a plane, but that's a whole nother story. But here's the crazy cuckoo nut job, universe, zen, cosmic, I don't kismet, whatever phrase you want to use. So 2 weeks before I went, the bike was gone. I had all my stuff packed. But to be honest, like I didn't have that much money. And Europe is really, really expensive. But I'd done the best I could to work, to sell stuff, to raffle, like I said, to bike wash, whatever, to raise money. I didn't really raise that much. And I was nervous about it. But I was like, I come hell or high water, I gotta go do this because the bike's gone, my shit's gone, like I gotta go.
Right.
And
We'll
um
we'll introduce the co-host in a second, by the
okay.
way.
and and a check showed up from that car accident that I'd had years before
Shut the
to buy the BMW. the check from the guy that had hit me years before on the Honda Dream
Yeah.
that allowed me to buy the BMW in the first place, which started this whole crazy experience of touring on motorcycles, going to see vintage races, why I'm going to Europe, the whole thing. It was a restitution check for like $1,000 from this guy,
Boom.
which boom made all of the difference on that trip, right? Because the year that I went, gas was crazy, crazy expensive. The exchange rate was nuts. It was like $9 a gallon of gas. And bikes get good gas mileage, but $9 a gallon is a lot of money. So the majority of it went to the gas tank. Anyway, but that to me was just like the icing on the cake, weird, karma type
Mm.
vibes about the whole trip. But anyway, so I went, I had a kick-ass time. I was there for 3.5 months. I toured Europe solo for all that whole time. Because I was so broke, it was so dirty poverty rider. Uh, I couch surfed almost the entire thing. I only paid for 5 nights of like youth hostel accommodation. The rest of it, and I'm not even joking you just have to be totally fearless when you're traveling by yourself, and you just have to put yourself out there because I would go to, I'd go to a race. I got to go back to like Austin for MotoGP. I came outside and there was this crowd of people around my bike. I mean, I couldn't even see it. I thought my bike was gone. I thought it'd been stolen because everybody also packed it full in my head that like the Dutch and Austin and everyone steals and there's a crime problem, which by the way, there is not. But anyway, everybody had filled my head with all these stories. And I was like, oh my God, my bike's been stolen. But it wasn't. It was covered and crawling with people because European motorcycles don't really exist on the roads in Europe because of emissions. They only very, very, very rarely get to go out. They live in
That
museums and people have them, but you just don't see them on the road doing stuff. And certainly not one with a Kentucky historical license plate, and certainly not one with a little girl in all black leathers, getting on it and getting ready to ride off. So people would stop and take pictures
huh.
because their minds were just blown. Like, why are you here? What are you doing? And I would explain,
I'll tell you if I could sleep on your couch.
ding, 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 ding. That's exactly what happened. So I sang for my supper and I would meet people along the entire trip who would be like, why are you here? What are you doing? And I'd be like, I'm traveling, I'm writing this blog, I'm writing for some forums. I had a little business card, I had like press credentials, which were totally made up by the way, but they got me into like 3 different MotoGPs and one World Superbike. Anyway,
Love it.
and so I had like kind of some legitimateness, and I just would tell people, can I stay on your couch? I'm just traveling and I'm just doing my thing, and they'd be like, I think you're kind of crazy, but let me call my wife. Hold on, and then they would call, and then in the time it took for us to get our act together and get to the house, the wife would have made some sort of awesome snack or dinner, something super hospitable, something amazing and local as can be. And the dude would have called his homies and we'd have like a little garage party and we'd sit around and I'd sing for my supper and tell everybody where I'd been and the cool stuff that I'd seen. And they were like, this is so crazy. Like, you're here by yourself. Why? Like, I mean, it's so awesome, but how? And they'd be like, where are you going next? And I would say, what my next stop was, whether it was a World Superbike or another MotoGP or a rally or something. And they'd be like, oh, my cousin lives by there. Let me call him. And they'd call him and that'd be my next stop. So I literally just got like handed off from biker to motorcyclist to motorcyclist to motorcyclist to biker to motorcyclists for 3.5 months all the way through Europe. So
That's
now,
awesome.
now you're
I
like,
want
well,
to hear
what
their stories. I want to hear them sitting around at like Christmas going, remember that crazy woman that showed up?
They do, because I'm still friends with a whole bunch of them because of Facebook.
Right.
So Facebook has kept us all connected, and I still keep in touch with a lot of these people. And then 10 years after that original trip, which would be 2 years ago now, I went back and I recreated the trip. But I went and saw some of the same stops, some of the same people, and had like an anniversary tour. But so the original OG trip though, I came back. I had written a couple of articles. I had a couple articles written about me, which was really nice. I ended up with a cover and a 5-page feature of classic bike, which for vintage bike dorks is like the holy grail.
Yeah.
And um, I went to a trade show to go show the magazine, like literally brought it to show the companies that have given me, leathers or technical undergarments or boots or a helmet or whatever the hell they gave me. I went to the Chicago IMS, which you are familiar with,
I am.
and went to all those booths and I was like, here's so and so. This is the girl who just did this thing, and here's proof, and I'm wearing it. People saw it. Like, thank you for giving it to me. And one of the companies was like, well, you clearly love to talk. you you clearly love to travel, and you clearly are a little crazy. Do you want to come join us and come be part of the traveling roadshow that we do? We hit 14 IMS stops, and then we do Daytona, and we do Sturgis, and all the big stops, right? And at that time, I couldn't believe that that was a job. I'm like, I would have done this for free, which I almost basically did, which is why I left that job like 10 months later. But that that springboarded me into companies seeing me at all 14 stops and a bunch of other different rallies and events. And, I'd show up at like 5 or 6 in the morning, set up a booth, pitch sell it all day, and bust my butt and still, try to be nice. I'm from the Midwest. We're pretty nice out here.
Right.
Try to be pleasant, try to be nice, have a good time. And there were very, 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 very few women representing any brands or products in trade show at that time. That would be late 2000s, so like 2008, 2009.
Right.
And women at that time really were ornamental. They were booth candy, and there was not a lot of women talking about product. And so I don't want to say invented because that makes me sound like a jerk, but I really was like a forerunner for the motorcycling industry. Not for all of them, not for all trade show, but for motorcycling, of hired gun. Because then I would have companies send me, a deck of what their product is. I'd memorize it. I'd get on the plane. I'd fly there. I'd do it all weekend long. Fly home, get a check. The next company would call, and I would go pitch sell it. And it was anything. It was socks, boots, helmets, leathers, Bluetooth, stereos, you name it. I pitch hustled it. And there wasn't anybody really doing that, which is how I stuck out like a sore thumb. So that led to the beginning of working trade show. So a couple of years of representing products really led to the opportunity to be the announcer and spokesperson for my first actual motorcycle manufacturer, which was Victory Motorcycles. And then that springboard the whole thing. And then I was with Victory for several years until they closed. At that time, I was able to pivot and move over and represent Indian Motorcycle instead, which was awesome because it was the same teams, it was the same company, it was the same people, and I'd known them for years. And I love the Indian product. It's a beautiful bike. When they came on the scene, the first couple of years, they were really just about getting that brand recognition, getting that name out there. But by year two or three, they decided what they really wanted to get into was dirt racing and flat track racing. And that I really, 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 really dig. So I was really pumped to be part of that campaign and at that time. And that led to announcing some races that they would host with Roland Sands Design, the Super Hooligan Race Series that they combined and joined forces on and founded. I was the announcer for that series for the first couple of years. That led to the opportunity to go and work for the big dogs over at American Flat Track Racing, which is the American Pro Series for flat track. And I did that for one season.
Wow. That must have been fun as hell.
It was really cool. I only had a handful of dates. I would have loved a longer crack at it, but they're always changing it up over there. They really like working with their more corporate NBC Sport, Fox Sport. They
Sure.
like those. They like those bodies, and so it's really tough to get my foot back in the door over there. But trust you me, I literally just emailed them this week. I was like, if something comes up, I would love another chance at it. I would love to jump back in. I'm ready at any time. I follow the series anyway. Um, yeah, so that's what I'm up to. So I'm that's
Wow.
yeah, yeah, and that's because of COVID. a lot of my career has been about live event, which we're not really having right now, right? You can't have a whole bunch
Boy,
of
do I
people
know what you mean.
can't have a whole bunch of people gathered together, right? So racing though has still been holding tough here in the US. So that's what I've been able to carve out a little bit more this year. I mean, I've been doing racing now for 4 years, but it's the only thing that's kept the lights on around here, to be honest with you, is picking up a couple of I did Sons of Speed, which is a really neat antique race down in Daytona. I did that last year during Bike Week, right before COVID landed and blew everything up.
Right.
And I picked up, what else did I pick up? A couple of flat track races. I did an AMA supermoto race, which was really cool. Asphalt and dirt together. Really, really neat style of racing that's kind of making a comeback here in the US. I was able to go out to Arizona and announce one of those races. I hosted and announced a race for Fight TV. I hosted and announced a race for Spot Network. So I'm still trying to I'm trying, man. It's all you can say for 2020 and 2021 is you've just gotta try. And I am too dumb to quit, and I'm really relentless, and I don't take no for an answer. So
No, and okay, so I'm gonna jump here to how when I met you.
oh, okay. I'm gonna open a beer.
Yeah. You know what? We may need a beer for this, so let's do that.
But sure.
I was it Chicago IMS? I walk in. I'm with my really really older friend Craig. Um, barely walking and hobbling in.
Savage.
I know he loves me so much. So I walk in and so I'm from the background of running the mic, doing parties, big live events.
Yeah, of course.
Walk over, he goes, "Hey, I want to introduce you to her." So I came over and I hear this woman freaking rocking the mic. And I'm kind of pissed off because I take that as a personal challenge. Like I don't want anybody you're not allowed to be in public doing this and not to be sexist or anything, but I at until that point, I had not seen a woman rock the mic like you were doing. You were motivating, you weren't cheesy, you were doing your thing, you're doing the sales. But there's people, I think it was IMS because there were people on stage and you were
It
but
was.
I'm not sure at that point, were you working for Progressive then?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought. And it was, I think before we got on the show that I glanced over and in slow motion, your hair was blowing in the wind and you if you saw this on YouTube right now, you're like, and she's walking and just her hair twinkling and the sweat glistening off her forehead. Wait, that
That
wasn't
sounds accurate.
yeah, that's it. Drinking a beer and doing a beer bong in the back.
Never, never. Oh,
Not at work,
shush.
not at work.
No.
No, but it was really cool because um, I think at that point too, it was very interesting to me to see what you have done in the industry or how that you found what you love to do, and found a way to do it, and were able to get in touch with those kind of people that would hire you. And being relentless, especially in the industry you're in, is gotta be the most important part.
Yeah, it's huge. It genuinely is huge. It doesn't mean getting passed over or getting turned down or, losing a gig. It doesn't hurt my feelings a little bit, but you totally have to just shrug it off and keep on trucking and know that a lot of it probably has nothing to do with you. It really, if you don't get booked for something, it really quite likely has more to do with budget or
Sure.
something else. It's that I mean that's the way that at least that's what I tell myself.
It's not that they hate you. It's not that they hate you. It's not that you have a crazy name. It's
Yeah,
not that you're
no.
like,
I've lucked out. I've actually had a really, really nice run, and I know that it does have and you already just pointed it out, to your listeners and viewers on YouTube. You because I'm a female out here doing it, I'm the only one. I am one of one women out here announcing races. There is literally nobody else. There's a handful of women that do interviews or
sure,
podium. There's those women and females out there, but if I announce racing, unless I'm booked specifically just to do interviews, which is fine, and I do,
right,
I am the one in the booth that you don't see that is announcing and doing the play by play and the specs and the deets and all that stuff, which has traditionally been a man's job.
sure,
So I love that I've created this space for myself. But the reason why I even got a microphone in the first place was because of a woman in the motorcycling industry who knew that a woman's voice over the PA would grab attention because it is so different.
Correct. Who is that woman?
And it's exactly what you did. You were like, "There's some
Right.
woman talking about
Why?
motorcycles here?
Yeah. I didn't. I mean, I knew nothing about it, so
They let them in here?"
I was probably more like, "Wow, there's a woman here. I want to find her."
That's real talk right there.
Just
That's real
kidding.
talk. So I've been really lucky. I've worked with great people. I've been able to springboard, well, from one company kind of to the next, to the next, to the next, but it is absolutely persistence. I email people every single day. I reach out to people every single day. Hey, I saw your thing. I saw you announce this event. If you're looking for somebody, here's my bio, here's my reel. Because
Hustle.
honestly, Dave, talking into microphones and cameras is all I know how to do.
Uh, well, tell me. So, as I know when you got into motorcycles and like young, so as a young woman, like, did you like? It sounds like your whole like. I would expect you to say, "Oh, I went to broadcasting school with a minor in journalism, and this is what I've always wanted to do." Is that true?
Yeah. Yes, so I definitely have always been, my family, my dad is a used car salesman, so I come by the gift of gab real honestly. My grandfather was a shoe salesman. My dad's slogan for his car dealership in the 70s, and I am not even joking, was a little ham, but no baloney. And this is just my whole family. This is how I grew up. I have always been on stage. I've always been the girl that like pushes to the front when there's photos and video cameras.
Right.
I've always just been that ham. It just genuinely is who I am. So I'm really, really grateful for it.
So, okay, we're going to talk about something important because the little ham, or no, a lot of ham, no baloney.
A little ham, but no baloney.
All right. So, is this the tagline for your podcast? I saw it somewhere on your Instagram or something.
I do. So I definitely have used that. I don't know if I did put that over on my podcast. So I did. I produced 2 podcasts last year, and then quickly dropped the ball on it. And I suck, and I'm not keeping up with it at all. I've got another idea for another podcast though, but I just got bogged down. I love how productive you are and how much you crank at this, and I love my other friends that are real deep in the podcast space that are just constantly producing, but I just found it tedious. I found the software just really obnoxious, and it took me months to figure it out because I don't come from an audio background at all. But I tried really hard to do the best I could. So I do have an All Things Motorcycle podcast, and it's downloadable wherever you're downloading your favorite podcasts. It is
Cha-ching.
available. Cha-ching. You can go
All
check
things
it out.
motorcycle. It doesn't.
All Things Motorcycle.
All
Yep.
right.
So that
What
is
is the show
also
about?
my big catchphrase for all of my videos and stuff. So yeah, what's the show about? Huh, super weird. I think it's about roller skating.
That's right. I used to do work for a lady from the company called Brake Parts. So they called and my first question. So what do you guys do over there? Um, I got the gig the first year, but it didn't go any further than that. She didn't share my humor. At all.
Some
Actually,
folks don't.
I know. I just actually had
Dave, my dad always told me there's an ass for every seat.
there is, and
And
that's the truth.
maybe she just wasn't your seat.
I know. Exactly. You know what? And we just put out an Instagram video, and I was live from Las Vegas, Illinois, and somebody actually wrote Las Vegas, Illinois, question mark. And I'm thinking he was kidding with me, but obviously if anybody knows me that they would know that, yeah,
I
obviously.
don't know if you've taken a gander at the internets lately.
Yes.
I don't really have faith that that they knew.
Right. But regardless, I appreciate that individual watching and
Yes. Oh, sorry. I don't mean to insult
yes,
your
no,
people.
and I take criticism extremely well. I'm starting to get some haters, so I think things are going in the right direction. That's what I've heard from everybody. You've
I
never even
agree.
done
I
anything,
agree
people hate
because
you.
at least you're eliciting a response. Nothing is worse in this industry that you and I are both in than like just
Crickets.
nothing.
Yeah,
Like that's the worst thing you can do. If you want to talk smack, if you want to hate on me, I drink your haterade by the bucketful.
that's right.
I love it. I drink it I've been doing live streaming video over on Facebook on a platform called Chopper Town, a great
Yep.
big huge motorcycle page. So Chopper Town is friends of mine from the way, way, way back machine that produce media and stream media, and the founder of that page is just super 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 tech savvy, and he started the Facebook page at the beginning of Facebook. So right now it's at 2.5 million
Oh,
followers, which is crushing it, right? So it's one of the largest motocentric pages on all of Facebook. And in 2015, 2016, when Facebook started doing live video, he reached out because we've been trying for years to figure out a way to work together. But he's in LA, I'm out here in Louisville, Kentucky. We both are usually broke as hell, so that it didn't make sense to fly me out to do something. Is what I'm getting at. It's usually not a ton of budget. Sometimes he does though. Sometimes he gets some really good budget. But anyway, so he reached out to me when Facebook started doing live and said, "Hey, there's this thing called live video. Do you want to do it? It's talking like into your phone, really. And I know you travel all over the place. At that time, I was, of course, doing trade shows and bike shows and all sorts of stuff all over the US. And I said, sure. And so, anyway, I've been doing that show for 5 years now. And sometimes it's live from, when I would go do IMS, I would go do a walk through the custom bike show. But I also do a show literally from this exact setting. So the YouTube people can see it, but your podcasters can't. But anyway, it's my living room, but I've set it up nice. There's a bunch of helmets. It's very well lit. And I do a show at least once a week, usually twice a week, talking about either motorcycle news, current news and events. And then I do a show on Fridays, and the Friday show is usually called Fun Fact Friday, and it's about the history of motorcycles.
wow.
So can get a little nerdy. I'm not gonna lie. I do love some nerdy stuff though. I love learning about bikes and the history of them. So I figured, well, shoot, if I like doing this, maybe somebody likes watching it. And I've been doing both those shows over there for 5 years. So I have heard my fair share of comments, critiques. You do have to have a thick skin. But I've also heard the most incredible nice compliments and the most incredible backhanded compliments from some watchers that are like, I really hate that this woman knows more about motorcycles than I do. God damn it. But I love you, like just really, really great ones like that. So
No, that's fantastic. And doing the live stuff's really fun. Okay, so when you're doing it, do you see the numbers too? So is it like weird when you watch the numbers go up, how many people are viewing?
oh, I mean, yeah, that's the name of the game. I mean, it's the
I
whole thing right
know.
there. Like, you gotta watch it. You gotta watch that thing. You've got to see
Right.
who's on there. But even if the numbers drop off, I just keep on trucking because I know that they'll catch it on the back end. They'll click on it. It's usually pinned to the top of Chopper Town, so I know I'm going to get the eyeballs sooner or later, even if I don't get them literally in the live. But I do try to make interesting shows. I work hard. I produce them all myself. It's all my own content. I don't have like a production team. It's telling me what the topic is going to be. Like, no, it's just me doing the research every single week, week in and week out for 5 years now, making that show happen.
Wow. That's crazy. You know what? And just the and anybody that listens to you or anything and sees the dedication that you go into actually preparing for a show, like preparing for a live show with stuff that maybe you didn't know before you prepared for that show. Um, it's dedication. And you were talking about how hard it is to do a podcast, like even on a weekly basis. But those
Yeah.
live shows, holy crap, that's 10 times harder.
I know, but I love the live because you push it away. Like the minute it's out on the internet, it's done. There is no post, whereas podcasting is all post. And I mean, I shouldn't make it sound like I hate it. It just took a long time to figure out the software. I'm doing it in GarageBand,
Yeah.
or was doing it in GarageBand, and I finally have a good handle on it now. And then I just got caught up in other stuff, and I just totally dropped the ball. dropped the ball on doing more of them. But all that being said, as far as podcasting goes, I had the most incredible text message conversation this past week with a friend of mine. And this gentleman currently lives overseas, but he is an American premier racer. He is a legend. He is an absolute big deal, really, really kick ass guy. And I just happened to be friends with him. We met at a concourse type show several years ago in Pennsylvania. I was invited to be a judge, the first woman judge of motorcycles there, which was dope. Anyway, they invited him because he was a VIP special big dog guest, and we just totally hit it off. And actually, I saw him when I went in 2018 back to Europe. I met up with him in Germany at the German MotoGP in Sachsenring, and because he promotes races there and is who he is, he snagged us. Well, he already had him. He didn't snag him for him. He already had him, but he snagged me some really rad VIP passes, and we got to go to full hospitality and eat at the top of the ADAC building, which is this big tower. And anyway,
That's awesome.
so he reached out because that weekend when we saw each other, and we were amongst other friends too. It wasn't just like he and I, but I'm not gonna lie, we cracked a couple bottles of Riesling and just talked. And he has the most incredible stories because he's been racing since the 60s. So, and grew up around automotive racing. Like his dad built the car that James Dean, the Porsche that James Dean unfortunately died in. That's his dad. So like it's this huge crazy thing that he's just his whole life, but he's also super fun and personable and easy to chat with. And he just reached out and said, "What do you think about doing a show where I just tell all these crazy behind the scenes stories and like hookers and blow and racing, and I mean like the dirty of it."
Right.
And I was like, "Oh hells yes, I want to be part of that show." So now I'm gonna figure out. I mean, I'm gonna get my act together, and we're gonna do a podcast. We're gonna be getting that sorted out in the next month or so, and then we should be releasing those in probably like 60 days. I'm gonna be in Daytona for Bike Week for 2 full weeks, so that takes up for some of that time. But
And I want to
I'm
hear about that too when you're done with that. But let me pause you right now. All things motorcycle. If you're excited about what she's saying right now and you're listening to this podcast, make sure when you're done listening to it in its entirety, go to Apple, wherever you got to go and subscribe so you make sure you know when she puts her next episode out.
thank you for that plug. I
Oh,
appreciate it.
it's my pleasure. But
We
that's
gotta do.
exciting.
Yeah, no, I'm really, really stoked for that because, just sitting and shooting the shit with him and getting those bits of gossip and trash talking and all that stuff at this dinner in Germany now 2 years ago. If the fact that that's to be able to recreate that, or the fact that I left that kind of an impression, we have that kind of rapport. I just thought that that was really incredibly flattering and very cool and very fun. And so that's one of the 5 million projects I'm going to be working on for 2021.
That's awesome. And I think that when we first started messaging to do this, because I meant to have you on like ages ago, but you know how all this stuff
I
goes.
didn't want to bring it up, but being guest number 537 is a little bit of a slag, Dave. It's a little bit of a slag.
I'm gonna tell you. See, if I was just easy, then it would have been like, oh yeah, he's gonna have me on. So maybe like, why is he having him on? What, am I not important? And I have a fun story for you. So in my little tiny little hometown that I live in here in Grays Lake, Illinois, um, we had a celebrity come to town. Her name was Jacqui Van Ham, and she came with her guest, her co-host is behind the microphone there, and I'm pretty sure that we sat at the little podunk bar that we have in our town, me, you, and your dog, and we
We
got to share a
did.
cocktail.
We did.
We're
We
sick.
did. Oh, that was a good time.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We did have a couple of drinks down at that little bar, and
yes.
it was super weird and packed, and it was so funny. It was just one of those small Midwest cities where everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows everybody's business. Everybody went to high school and they stayed in the same town.
Not
But
everybody graduated high school,
or not. I
but
mean, no shade. Not everybody has to
right,
graduate. Everyone's got different path in life.
school's not
Uh,
for everybody, mama.
and it's not for everybody. You're
Right,
right.
but the
And
kids
so
at the
yeah,
bar,
no, we had a great time. It
yeah,
was so awesome to see you, and I always follow what you get up to. I was so pumped to see you launch this podcast and listen to it. Your production's great. I love your sound effects. I love it's who you are. You're like this wacky, crazy over the top guy, and I love it. Your podcast completely reflects it.
okay, that's good. Yeah,
But shame
sometimes
on you for taking so long to get a hold of me.
I know. Sorry about that. Yeah, and you know why that bar is my favorite? I love to go to a bar, especially in a suburban area where they only take cash and you can always get a good can of like PBR or something like that that you really can't get in a draft in a plastic cup.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, one of 3 that they have. You know, it's good. Okay,
In
so
booming Grays Lake, Illinois.
oh
And I
yeah,
am wearing, by the way, a Moto Guzzi t-shirt from the Moto Guzzi factory as an homage to you and Mr. Craig Rodsmith,
yes. You know what? The whole
the dynamic duo.
yeah. Well, I didn't really do anything. I just hang out. I just
It's
hang out. I
it's true,
make him
you
look
do.
better. They see me walk in and be like, God, Greg's really good looking. Like he's just standing next to the other. We look like the number 10 standing next to each other. That's I want to hear about Daytona because okay, so of course my goal this year was to travel everywhere. Like my thing was like I wanted to go to the Salt Flats. I wanted to go here. I wanted to go there. I was going to go to Born Free. I was going to go here, and obviously
For
everybody.
2020?
Yeah, for 20,
Oh yeah.
I had all my money saved, and
Oh,
and I've had some really really generous people that have even with the like the Born Free coming up. I have some good friends that put me up to stay with them and things like that. But Daytona, if I would have even thought about it, I think it's something that it looks like something everybody should experience on the motorcycles.
yeah, Daytona's cool. So Daytona is kind of one of those big, huge dinosaur rallies here in the United States. It's like Sturgis, it's like Laconia. It's iconic. It's been going on for 100 gazillion years. I think it's a little bit past its heyday. It's not as big as it used to be because that V-twin community is slowly changing and literally dying out, sadly. So it's definitely changing a little bit, but I still love it. I love Daytona because, first of all, it's Florida in March, which is way more better than being in the Midwest, or even I'm in Kentucky, but I mean, we still have 4 inches of snow out here.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so Florida anything, sign me up in March. That's a yes from me.
amen.
But it's also just a neat chance now because I've been going so long for work. It's totally family reunion, and Sturgis is the same. I get to see all my buddies that are in the industry that I only see once or twice a year.
Right?
The weather is nice. We can go ride bikes. Um, Daytona's changed a little bit in the fact that, I mean, the racing still happens, which is the whole reason why Daytona is Daytona. It was founded, as was Sturgis, as was Laconia, founded on motorcycle racing, which that whole concept and idea kind of got lost a couple years ago, and it became much more of just like a V twin rally. But there still is a race. It still is the Daytona 200, which
Yeah.
is what the foundations of Daytona is. But nobody goes. But God bless, it's great racing. So that happens. American Flat Track Racing runs a race. Steve Nace, who's a Midwest promoter, runs like 5 or 6 races down there during the week. Flat Track Racing again, all sorts of different classes: modern bikes, antique bikes, vintage bikes, all sorts of stuff. Kids, adults. There's just a ton of really rad stuff going on. It isn't just getting wasted on Main Street with your friends. I mean, you can absolutely go accomplish that. I have accomplished that,
Sure.
but
Good at it.
it's not the only thing that happens at Daytona. So I really really enjoy it. It's really spread out though. There's a lot of, I mean, there's just so much going on. And Sturgis is the same. Sturgis is like, it's just so huge. It's so massive, and it's so hard to pin down what's happening because things are happening every single day at every different location. And there's custom bike shows and races and hangouts and yada yada yada. And then demo trucks show up so you can go ride the bikes if you want to go ride the bikes. The beach is there. Florida fish fry is there. Florida peel and eat shrimp is there. Those are my favorite things. That's the only reason why I also love this job is I get to travel and go eat incredible food all around America.
Wow. So now you're going for 2 weeks. Are you?
Yeah.
Did you say you're working or are you
Yeah.
playing?
Oh yeah, no, no. I go for work. I go for work every year. This year, unfortunately, the Sons of Speed, which is a really rad antique race that I mentioned earlier,
Okay.
they chose back in December to cancel, which is such a bummer. They didn't know what was coming. They didn't know how it was going to be. I think they could have pulled it off, but it's also that the folks that run that race, like literally that race those bikes, are very, very old, and it maybe just wasn't responsible to host a race with a bunch of 70-year-olds when there's a pandemic going on. So anyway, they made the very tough decision to cancel it. It'll probably be back in the fall. So I'll hopefully see them at Biketoberfest when they run that event again. But anywho, so that got canceled. But this time I'm going to go down. I think I'm going to be down there with my friends from BMW. I have jumped in a couple of times to help them out here and there, kind of representing some new bikes for them. The new R18, which is kind of a retro themed, retro vibe cruiser, came to market just this past year and some change, and they are hot and heavy about promoting that bike, and that's kind of the perfect place for it. So I think I'm going to go down there and help represent that bike and show that off and talk to people about that bike, and I'll be down there for 2 full weeks.
Wow, your life sucks.
It's awful, Dave. It's the worst.
Really, really bad for you. If you
No, so I'm pumped about that, and then I have another really exciting event coming up. I can't quite get into the details of it yet because they have not announced it yet. They were supposed to do that tomorrow.
okay,
It's a huge, huge motorcycling event in the Dallas area at the end of May. That's the only details that I can give your listeners and viewers, but it's going to be just totally cuckoo, nut job, off the rails, crazy town. It's the same weekend also that American Flat Track Racing runs their race in Dallas Fort Worth area. So it's a whole weekend of really, really kick ass motorcycle stuff going on in Dallas towards the end of May.
wonderful. I'll book my ticket today.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Um,
great. There
I love
actually there is going to be a huge custom bike element, just FYI.
really
Mhm.
excellent. Even better. I
I
bet you spend a
know.
lot of time there. I was actually,
I
yeah, yeah, I can't even talk about that. But yeah, I was there recently. Um,
mm.
yeah, that was good. It's all good. I
Were
like that.
you were
I get
you at
to.
a special museum in Dallas?
Oh yes, but I can't talk about what I was shooting. But yes, we were shooting. Yes, but
Yes.
and now have you been there?
I have not.
Oh my god.
For some reason, since that museum opened and everybody I know has bikes there, I have not been in Dallas. I don't know what's going on with my schedule, but I just have not made it to Dallas. So I'm
May
really excited about staying an extra day and going and seeing it. For sure. I definitely am going to go. It's the Bobby Haas Museum, is what we're referencing, by the way. That's not a secret. That's not under wraps, but
no
it's Bobby Haas's collection of motorcycles, one of the best custom bike collections in the United States, easily, hands down. It's just
great.
stunning. So I'm really excited to go see that.
Yeah,
There was
yeah.
something else that I wanted to go see in Dallas too. I mean, I really enjoy Dallas. So it's going to be a great weekend. I'm really excited about going to the races on Saturday night, I think is when they're going to happen.
Cool.
And then the event will be during the day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
And you'd be proud of me. I went to my first flat track race this year too. I was in at Springfield Mile.
Oh, that is
Yeah,
a great, great race. I love that race. It is the jewel in the crown of American flat track racing. It is a great handful of days. I love that they bumped it to fall as opposed to the spring race, because the spring races got rained out like every
that's what I heard.
single spring
Yep.
for years. And it was just made so much more sense to make it this huge, huge double whammy weekend in the fall instead. So I'm so pumped that you got the chance to go. I love that race. It's really intense. It's really historical. It's an important race here in the United States. It's got global fans. So it's a really neat kick-ass thing. I'm stoked for you. Did you have a good time?
I had a great time. The
Yeah.
weird thing is going with my friend Evan Sen, who did the movie Fast and Left. Um,
Oh,
so I'm hanging out with Evan. He knows everything about flat track racing. Of
yes.
course, I know they have beer, and they go around in a circle. So
I know that there's motorcycles. There
exactly,
appears to be dirt, but I could be wrong.
yeah. And Jeffrey Carver Jr., who I got to have on the podcast, and
I
Jeffrey
love
fucking
Jeffrey
awesome.
Carver. Oh my God. I love him so hard. He is the greatest, nicest, most genuine, down to earth human being. So incredibly talented. I adore him to pieces. So I'm super, super pumped that you had a chance to
Thank
interview
you.
him and talk to him on your podcast. Actually,
Yeah.
I think he's one of the very last racers to have won on a Harley Davidson XR750,
Mhm.
which is kind of a big deal and kind of important.
Yeah.
He actually won the Springfield Mile, which is a big deal, and he's from Northern Illinois, so he's one of
Yes.
the last fast boys from Illinois, as they call it, last of the FBI to have won the Springfield Mile.
I like when you go down there and they call it Carver Country. I
It's
was like,
definitely Carver country.
and half of my family's from down there. Speaking of people that didn't graduate high school, yes, so that works in there well. Sure. I'm sure my families are big fans of the show right now. Especially.
I'm sure they're eagerly tuning in. I'm
Yes, they
certain.
are.
I'm
Okay.
certain.
If Jacqui Van Ham could do any of these jobs, if you could do the announcing for racing or running the booths, what is your job that your absolute dream? Somebody said you can do this for the rest of your life. Here it is. What is it?
My dream gig would be doing commentary for one of the larger race series. The dream gig would probably be doing announcing and commentary for MotoGP. That is a very, very huge pie in the sky type dream. I but something along those lines is what I would really, really love to do. Or even I do love motorcycles. I do talk motorcycles all the time, but I love cars. I grew up around cars. I just haven't had the opportunity to go play in that area yet. So I have been sending my reel and stuff over to folks that host car racing
Right.
to see if I can get my foot in the door over there. I'm not opposed to it. I mean, if it races, I'm into it. If it's got wheels, I'm into it. But probably my dream fantasy job would be announcing for MotoGP. That would be the at the very top of the list.
Right. That would be awesome. That would be really awesome. Hey, you
I
never
j
know.
I just dig it. You know, like I said, women are not usually in that role. I cannot think of a single female that has been in that role ever that does commentary, not just the podium announcing, not
Right.
just the interview. That's different. Women have done that for forever and ever and ever. And even at AFT, that woman is referred to as the girl, and they are interchangeable. They are disposable. I was that girl for a season,
Ah,
and I'm not talking smack about it. It's true. It literally in meetings it was just like, and the girl will do that, the girl. And I was like, no, I really want to be in the box with Scotty. Like I want to be up there doing co-commentary and statistics and details and facts,
right.
but at the same time I had to be grateful for the role that I had, right? You know,
Right.
you can't trash talk it or be upset about it. I still was at the premier pro dirt track race league series in the United States.
Right.
But I really, really would love it if I could get my foot in the door and do more of that type of work. And like I said, I sometimes it happens. You know, I did that for the AMA Supermoto series. I've done that for plenty of flat track series, smaller regional series here in the Midwest. And I love when they call me and ask me. And a really good company, promotion company called Extreme Flat Track that's based out of Texas, Oklahoma area reached out last year about doing some announcing for them at the half mile track in Rapid City, which I did. And when we were on the horn, because we've never met face to face, he just said, you know, I love what you do. I love the energy that you bring, but I love that you know what you're talking about. You know, it isn't just that I'm hiring a woman to do this job because, you know, I'm the flavor of the month or I'm something different or I'm a novelty act or I'm not and I am not ornamental. He's like, no, you genuinely do a great job, which is why I'm talking on the phone to you. So
Awesome. Yes.
that was a big compliment.
Yeah. Nice to be treated as a person, as a woman or a man or most
I
qualified
try
person.
I try to not let this handicap of having a vagina slow me down too much.
And now I have a title for the show. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I was wondering what we were going to call it, but now we have it.
I'm glad I could serve that softball up to you.
Yes, it's good like that. All right, so let's do this. So, uh, okay, I'm going to ask you. I want your real answer here because I already know the answer. Um, how many podcasts of mine have you listened to?
I've only had the chance to listen to a handful of them, actually. I'm not
You're
gonna lie.
just
I'm not a
one.
regular. I'm ironically, as much as I've produced my own podcast and I'm going to get ready to do another, I don't really listen to too many
Neither
podcasts.
do I.
I'm not that person that's like in a car commuting somewhere.
Right.
I'm also certainly not the person that's like on a treadmill listening to something for an hour. I am not that girl either. So I love podcasts. When I do listen to them, I really love them. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm so much more visual. I'm so much more video oriented than podcast oriented. So that's my honest answer. But I love the medium. I think it's super fascinating. I love listening to it. I hate listening to crappy podcasts. I
Right.
love listening to really nicely produced with good sounds and good effects and some
Right.
storytelling. And I love those types of podcasts. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do.
Yeah, I just had to write a sponsor pitch, and it was really funny because it's a moto podcast, and last week we've been teetering around like in the top 50 of automotive podcasts on
Cool.
Apple things, which fuck, I'm like, okay, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like when you get the email and you're like, what? I'm what 37? What?
Damn it,
Um,
you're so good at that. And it's all about the production. It's the fact that, well, not just the quality of production, but the productivity is what I meant to say. It's the fact that you are constantly cranking it out. Like that's what keeps you towards the
of course.
top of the pile. And I know how good you are with SEO. Like, don't play no games with me. You are so good on the internet. It makes me sick.
How would you ever get that idea? That's pretty funny. I'll just leave it. I'll leave that one. I'll leave that one right there. Um, so point being, in the sponsor, they were like, "Oh, is it a? You'd think it would be a technical thing," and I'm like, "I don't, can't even spell technical," which is funny. They spell it testicle, but it's really
Oh, so
hard to.
it truly was automotive then. Good for you.
Yeah, it was. It was automotive. It's good because there's a lot of those in the automotive industry, which is good, and it's
That's what I was getting at there, my friend.
right. But it's funny that I think actually being a woman in some sorts, I look at we're 92% male listenership. So I think which you're you're extremely smart woman that that I mean in this space you can also use that even though people haven't done it before, but you can use it to your advantage as well. Like you said, when you hear a woman talking on the microphone of these places, people are like, "Hey, wait, who's that?" So
Yeah.
it's excellent. It's excellent. And in this business, you got to do whatever you can.
I'm just out here dealing the hand I'm dealt. You know what I'm saying? I was born a female, obviously. I am a woman. I am short. I am who I am. I cannot change those things about me. But as much as there are plenty of reasons why being a female has maybe helped garner work for me, I can promise you there's 3 times as many that I have not gotten jobs because I am a woman. Because that being said, as much as I stand out, I'm different. I work hard. You know this because you know me. There's not a day that goes by where I don't send a reel or a resume out to something that's kind of not totally in my wheelhouse, pun intended, either car side stuff
Right?
or who did I send a note to? I sent a note to a promotion company that runs like desert type racing, like Mint 400, Baja, like that type of stuff because they do really nice production. I mean, they have a helicopter that gets helicopter shots, like super kick ass.
Yeah.
So I was like, I got to send these people a note, I got to reach out. So I did because I'm fearless and I'm too dumb to stop. So I sent them a note and she wrote back and she was really complimentary. So again, if she's listening, no shade. She was like, "I love your reel. You've got great energy. Your reel and your bio look great, but what makes you think that know about desert racing?" And I'm
Oh
like,
man.
but you know what? First of all, if I was a man, that never would have been asked because there's tons of men announcing in motorcycling who come from cars. And I promise you, at their meeting when they got hired, they weren't asked what they know about motorcycles. But look, I know that I'm super different for this space, for this genre, for this field. So I take that, with in my stride. I did not ping back and get wild on her. I just very politely replied, I've never had the chance to be in your space, but I'm a huge Nora, Baja, Dakar. I'm a huge fan of it. And she was like, excellent, great answer, and I said, and I love doing research anyway. So those are all my things that if I don't know something, you'd better believe I sit up at night and print out the Wikipedia page and whatever I can find and go through and read and highlight. And I mean, I do my homework. I'm not stupid. There's a reason why I've had a career out here for 8 years when most people, this is what they do for funsies when they really work some, quote unquote real job that has benefits and stuff. There's a reason why I'm out here and have been able to book work luckily. So
Can't say
I
that
try to
dirty
work.
word on the
I
radio.
try to, what's that?
Can't say those dirty words on the radio.
Which dirty word?
Real job.
Oh.
That's bad. Nobody listens to this show has a real job. Nobody has that. Nobody has benefits that listens to the job either.
But yes, so to bring that full circle, so yes, I'm sure that there are pluses. There is
Sure.
plus column stuff at me being a woman out here, but I promise you, just as many as there is 2 times as many negatives. And she's not going to know what she's talking about. Does she know what she's talking about? Can she know what she's talking about? Does she know what four wheels is? Does she know what cars are? Like, I get just as much as that kind of stuff too.
Right. I'm imagining so. All right. So since we're close to like an hour here, I'm really interested because I'm only going to ask you this because I want to ruin your podcast and take over the world. Not that I'm interested in what you're going to say to this. So at the end of all of my podcasts I do, I ask my guests to nominate 3 people that if you saw them on a podcast, you'd be like, oh, okay, this moto podcast with this donkey that doesn't know about motorcycles. At least he has good guests. So,
Ah,
um, 3 people that you would say that you would love to hear that would spark your interest.
who would I love to hear from? I would love to hear from Jochen Seitz, who is the new CEO of Harley Davidson, who just took that job over last year, who is in charge of this whole like rewire campaign that Harley Davidson is going through, where they slashed and burned and cut jobs, they're cutting dealerships. Anyway, all of that playbook is from him. So I'd be really curious to talk to him, Jochen Seitz. I would also love to talk to who I actually know in real life, a buddy of mine named Ola Stengard, who is a very, very well-known motorcycle designer who just designed and released the Indian Chief, the new line of the Chief, which took a huge facelift for the 100-year anniversary of the Chief from the original Indian motorcycle from way back in the Wayback Machine. He also is the designer who designed the R9T from BMW in the Wayback, which has been a really pivotal, important machine for them. Anyway, so Ola Stengard would probably be number 2.
Yeah.
Number 3, um, it would probably be Mary McKee, who is a woman. She is older now, but she raced in the 1960s and maybe early 70s. I believe she has won Baja. She just is, she's an AMA Hall of Famer. She's a super nice, very sweet lady. She still is alive and kicking, and she's active out here on the socials.
Wow.
And she's a really, really very cool, very interesting woman. And then number 4 would be, but she wouldn't do it because she wouldn't understand the technology, I don't think, would be a woman named Gloria Struck, who also is an AMA Hall of Famer and is, God bless her, she's got to be 90, in her 90s by now. But
Really?
the stories she has, same thing as the guy that I want to partner up with to do this podcast who raced in the 60s. She's been riding motorcycles since the 50s, 40s,
Yeah.
and still does. She had a little bit of a health bump last year, but if she wouldn't have, she would have rode her motorcycle from New Jersey, where she lives, out to Sturgis, and she does almost every year. And she's in her 90s, so has seen everything. I know that she has just got some real, 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 real stories in there. I've read a couple of her books. She's just another super fascinating human being. So that would probably be my pick. I'm sure I could name some more, but those are just the ones off the top of my head.
It's so fun for me to hear who people like, especially like Ola, like his Forsaken Industry.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
On the socials, he's Forsaken Industries.
Yeah, and I've messaged back and forth because from the beginning of doing this, everybody's like Ola, Ola, like, and I think we crossed paths at the one show this year and or
Yes,
last
you
year.
should have. You should have. Yes.
Yeah, but just this whole industry, like even though when I started liking it and everything, and now as things go on, um, I love hearing the stuff where like somebody people like really look up to, and then they meet him and they're like, oh my god, he's like a normal dude or a normal chick. Like these people are just, and I think that's everybody needs to understand. It's just what they do.
Yeah.
They're just badass at what they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but don't be afraid, and nobody should be afraid to talk to these people. I love to hear their stories and stuff, especially
Me too.
things that I have no idea about. It's more interesting than anything.
Yeah.
And,
And
and I'm
Ola's
like,
super, super nice human being. And, he would be a great, very, very fun interview.
yeah,
He is overseas still. He does live in Europe. He's headquartered and based in Europe, as it were, and works with Indian Motorcycle, super duper duper long distance. But he's a great, great guy.
is there anywhere that you would, you've been to Europe and stuff. Is there anywhere that you would absolutely love to travel to in your motorcycle adventures that you haven't got to yet?
Oh gosh, yeah. I would go anywhere on a motorcycle, to be honest with you. There's only a handful of places that I'm not particularly interested in, and I title those toilet paper countries. So either countries that have toilet paper and countries that do not have toilet paper. And if you do not have toilet paper, I am not particularly interested in going to your country.
I,
Just to be really honest with you. But that being said, I do love an adventure. I would absolutely love to go and check out Vietnam, Thailand, that neck of the woods. I would really love to do South America. I would really, really love to do Mexico on a dirt bike. I would love to go to Europe again. It's the reason why I love motorcycles so much is the motorcycles are cool. The motorcycles are very cool. They're very interesting to me. I love how they're tied into the history of the world. Motorcycles not only have their own history, they have their place in the much bigger picture of history. And I think that those things are very interesting. But I really love travel. And that's why I started even getting into bikes, is because gas was so expensive, but I'm independent. I like to do my own thing. I'm not afraid of bikes. I'm not afraid of being by myself. I've always traveled alone, even if it was by car. And that's what really got me into bikes, is the travel aspect of it. The getting from point A to point B, and smelling the smells and feeling the weather, and being completely submerged in the environment that you are in when you are traveling, and then when you get to your destination. That's what motorcycles represents to me, is travel. So I would be willing to go anywhere on a bike, but that being said, it needs to be the right bike.
Right.
Like I said, like Mexico, I would want to be on dirt bikes. For Vietnam and things of that nature, I would also want to be on a smaller displacement, possibly a dirt bike. um, Europe, I love being on a classic European bike, because people, like I said, just lost their marbles over it, because it's just so weird to see them out living their lives and doing their thing. And it's also, this is the place where that motorcycle came from. So experiencing those streets, that narrowness, the traffic, experiencing everything that was thought about when that bike was developed
Mhm.
on that bike in that place, super special.
That's awesome. You're amazing. I love your insight. I love your passion for this whole thing. And man, I wish I had half of your go go get 'em. I consider myself a go getter, but you blow me away. I didn't have a chance in the world.
I know that you're a go-getter, my
Ugh,
friend, but thank you for the huge compliment. I appreciate it. Like I said, it's literally the only thing I know how to do. And I just am too stubborn, to give it up, or, knock me down 9 times and I'll get up 10. I just am
right.
gonna keep on trucking and doing my thing out here till I get what I want. You'd asked earlier what my dream fantasy gig would be,
Yeah.
and and I mentioned, and I said my answer was announcing for MotoGP. But my other answer, that does not have to do necessarily with announcing, is television. I've always wanted television since forever. I have wanted to be on TV. I've wanted to host my own show, and I really want it to be about travel, number one, because like I said, that really is my true passion. I would love if it could connect motorcycles, travel, food. That would be pretty dope, because I love all three of those things. That's honestly, at the end of the day, that is my huge big picture goal for me. And I just am going to keep on scraping and clawing and emailing and calling and doing whatever I have to do until I get there. In one way or the other, it's going to happen.
Go get it. Hashtag relentless.
For
Um, so anybody listening to the show right now, if you know Jacqui, if you're just meeting her for the first time, show her some love, because I know the content that she's pushing out. Obviously, if you liked her talking on here, there's 1,000 more things that are going on. So Jacqui, tell them where they can find you.
So I am out on the socials, of course. Who isn't? I am at Instagram. I am pretty hot and heavy over on Facebook as well. Both those places are just at Jacqui Van Ham. And then my podcast is called All Things Motorcycle. And that also is the name of the video series and vlog series that I host on the Choppertown Facebook page, that also lives conveniently here on YouTube.
Ah. It's almost like you know how to do this. It's great. I like it. Oh my God. Seriously. Well, I'm so happy through all this that you've been able to keep working. I know that everything's gone down, but hopefully
Yeah.
I wish you the best of everything. A nice TV gig announcing, and then saying, we got to stop the show because I need to go announce the MotoGP, and you take a break in your TV show.
Oh,
That'd be
thank
fine.
you. Thank you for sending me that positive energy. Like, that is what I need out here. I've had really, really good conversations over the COVID time. So now it's just a matter of putting the screws to people, locking things down, getting in front of the right people. And I took this time to take those steps and get there. I've reached out to a local agent, an agency here. about trying to set up a deal, with an actual agent, and I explained very clearly what I want. And those are the meetings that I want and the hands that I want to shake. And she's like, "You don't need an agent, you just need a manager. Like you're doing all this, you're doing all the legwork on your own." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it sounds better if an agency calls you representing you to get that meeting." Like I think
I'm really good at
that's
fake phone calls, by the way. If you ever need it,
I
I
know,
can
as
officially.
opposed to handing 20% over to somebody, I guess I should have just had you do it. I don't know what I was doing out here.
I'll take a 0.5% just to make a fake phone call. It's no problem. And then I'll
Thanks,
have their
buddy.
people get back to our people, and then you can take it from there. It'll be fine.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. And thank you so much for asking me to finally be on your podcast.
Yes, some people play hard to get. I play hard to want. Um, so with that being said, everyone, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Pigeon Whole Motorcycle Podcast. And Jackie, thank you so much for your time, hon.
Thank you, Dad.